Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Rideshare Zone. I'm your host, Sean, the Colorado Rideshare Guy. You can find me on all the major social platforms under CO Ride Guy. So that's at CO Ride Guy. And then, by the way, I'm now available on all the podcast platforms as well. So if you didn't get the episode last week, you can come back here and watch a replay, or you can go download it on your favorite podcast platform. So like I said before, we made it. I'm back. And thank you everyone that came in. What's up, Bubba Sue? Thank you to everyone that came in last week and everybody that's come in again this week. You guys are a glutton for punishment, but I appreciate y'all coming in. But all right, Bubba Sue, who do you think we're going to talk about first? What's my favorite topic? I guess you're going to guess Waymo, and you would be correct with that. What do you call it? Waymo. That's it. So slogan of the week for Waymo is where U.S.-based workers don't matter, only profits. Why am I saying that? Well, many of you may have already heard about that, but they had their Senate hearings this week, and some pretty interesting things came out of it. But the most interesting thing that came out of it was that Waymo's using Filipino workers for jobs that U.S. workers could do and probably should do. So jump in this a little further in case you haven't heard about it. But so the Senate, during the Senate hearings, Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts asked, what happens when a Waymo vehicle encounters a situation it can't resolve on its own? Good question, right? We've all seen videos where it really struggles with that. And, well, the Waymo chief security officer was being served as interrogatories on that. His name is Mauricio Pena. And so Mauricio Pena, the Waymo chief security officer, said that he likened it to phone a friend. Oh, okay. So now we've turned this into a game show. It's not just a robo-taxi, but now it's a robo-taxi with a game show. To go further, he said they provide guidance. They do not remotely drive the vehicles. Okay. Says Waymo asks for guidance in certain situations, yada, yada, yada. But Waymo is always in charge of the dynamic driving task. Well, if Waymo's are always in charge, then why the hell do they even hire somebody to provide input? I mean, that's stupid to hire an expert to give you input and then not take the input from the expert. Are we just dancing around the subject here, Mr. Pena, or what's the deal here? That doesn't make any sense. And so again, further reinforcing what he said, he goes on, and they said the agents provide limited guidance, yada, yada, yada. And the system, the Waymo vehicle, can accept or reject any suggestions it receives and remains fully in control of driving decisions. Now, if that's really true, guys, that's scary as hell, because that means said so right there. I'm just taking a direct quote that I read, that the Waymos are ultimately in charge. That's what he said, guys. I'm not making this crap up. It was under oath in a Senate hearing. So I'd like to hear some further explanation on that, Mr. Pena, but I know I'm not even on your radar remotely, but maybe one day, or maybe it'll get passed on to you by somebody, and you can clarify that. Either way, so now we've got people influencing the Waymo that don't have U.S. driver's license, haven't ever driven in the U.S., and are helping this thing make decisions. So I don't know, guys. What do you think about all this? You see, Bubba Sue says, damn outsourcing. Absolutely. So Anyway, I think that's just kind of a tell about Waymo doesn't care about anything but profits, guys. So, oh well, here we are. We'll just keep fighting for fighting the good fight and giving people rides that want to be driven by humans, not influenced by foreign drivers and autonomous vehicles. So, next subject on here, let's talk about from the passenger side a little bit, guys. So from the passenger side, I did a little experiment this week. Normally I don't do rides with stops because they just don't pay enough, and so I decided I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a few rides with stops and see because one thing I always found, besides just I don't get paid enough, is people are always trying to leave stuff in there. And so I want to talk to some passengers and find out, why are you doing this? Why are you leaving stuff in my vehicle? So I did exactly that. Took some rides with some stops, and then I politely say, hey, don't forget your stuff. And they all, every single one of them, universally, we've all heard it, say, oh, no, I'm just going to be a minute. Well, that's lie number one, because if you're going into a convenience store, you have no control of that. And how many people are standing in front of you? It never takes a minute. Okay, maybe one time I've had somebody that was just a minute. Whenever I first started doing this, was doing rides with stops. But anyway, so I don't know why they're leaving stuff in the car. I have my suspicions, and I'm sure all of you do too. I don't know if you guys have ever asked a passenger, why you want to leave your stuff, but I did. At the risk of getting another, 1-star review, I went ahead and had some polite confrontation with these folks about it, and it was kind of interesting. I think it pretty much concluded, it was only 4 rides, guys, so I can't really say for sure what it was. And, and you seldom get the full story from the passengers, especially when they're being confronted about something that they didn't expect to be confronted on. But the biggest thing that I found was exactly that, Bubba Sue. They don't want, they think they're going to use it as an anchor. Now, those of you who don't know what an anchor is, that is putting something or someone in your car so you don't drive away from them. So that was the most universal one. The other one was, well, I just do it out of habit, and I just don't want to mess around with carrying it in. Just kind of some, willy-nilly, not really much thought put into it reasons. And the conversation I was had with them afterwards, and we'll get back to this anchor thing, because you're exactly right, Bubba Sue. That was my belief about what it was, and that seems to be really what people were kind of attempting to do whenever they really started thinking about it. But I tell passengers, don't leave stuff in the driver's car. Welcome in, Steve. If you leave stuff in somebody's car, Uber, Lyft, the driver have no responsibility for your stuff. And there is a bunch of crappy ass drivers out there. Yes, drivers, you complain about the passengers. Guess what? It goes the other way too. There's a lot of you that suck and that are jerks and will just either throw the crap out, or you'll drive off and throw the crap out and not even think twice about it. And because that this is really a civil issue. Now, every once in a while, somebody could call the cops, and local jurisdiction might be kind of, tough on crime, and, and not like Uber drivers or whatever, and do something about that. At least intervene. But most agencies don't care about property crimes, especially in this day and age. And contractually not responsible for it. So it really is a civil matter. So passengers, don't leave stuff in the cars. You're just asking for trouble, and you're making a driver mad. And You might get that one driver that wants to dig through your belongings and see what's good in there. It could happen, guys. So, first off, 7-figure Dasher just came in the door. What's up? Torp, my man, what is up? You crazy mofo. Steve, once again, welcome in. We got Bubba Sue, Twin Pines Studio. Starting to fill up the house here a little bit. Gonna have to make the room bigger. But yeah, that's kind of it with kind of leaving passengers leaving bags in there. Sue, you nailed it. It's about creating an anchor, and anchors don't do anything. Passengers, all you do is make your driver mad, and you might get the wrong driver and never see your stuff again. So don't do that. Just be really polite, and 99% of the drivers are gonna, reciprocate with politeness to you too. So that was what I found while doing my little experiment of doing some rides with stops. And oh my gosh, at least they were all quick ones, guys. By the way, I got really lucky, but I was also selective on the time of day that I did it. I did it when it wasn't extremely busy for me, but I knew people were trying to get to work, so I'd be less likely to have somebody that was going to burn up that clock and have that problem. So I lost maybe 10 minutes all day, all the days that I did those rides with stops. So unless I have another experiment to do related to stops, I'm not doing any more rides with stops, guys. Sorry. You guys were all wonderful that I did that, but you still haven't changed my mind. I'm not doing rides with stops. So, all right. So we got a new little fun segment here about let's just all get along and read some driver reviews. So this first review is really interesting. Driver kidnapped me, forced me into a cult. The ride took 4 years and my life savings. 1 star. I don't know, guys. This must have been out of California. It sounds like Scientology launched Ron rides or something. Okay, yeah, that's probably not a real review. How about this one? Driver ended the ride early. He also would not let me out of stop at the bank. Must have been me, because I don't do stops, right? So the driver ended the ride early. He wouldn't let me out of stop at the bank. And then to top it off, the driver wouldn't put the ski mask on. 1 star. Sounds like my coffee fare. Yeah, it is, Torp. No kidding, brother. All right. So what kind of reviews do you guys have? Why don't you send me a few? We can read them on there. This might be a fun new little segment to do. All right, let's go to the next one. Driver was drinking whiskey out of his coffee mug. That was not me, Torp. And refused to share. Monday morning sucks for passengers too. Report the driver for rude behavior and 1 star. All right, next one. My driver screaming Talladega Nights quotes and making race car sounds while weaving in and out of traffic down the interstate. That's my kind of driver. 5 stars. Shake and bake, baby. All right. That's enough of that. But if you guys do have any good review stories, send them over to me. They'd be a lot of fun. Or make a few up too. I don't care. Trying to have a little lighthearted fun with some of this stuff. Particularly when you start talking about subjects like red flags. But let's go back over to the chat here real quick. It says, I'll tell the riders the trip is on me if they jump out at 10 miles per hour and I don't have to stop. Hey, I wouldn't say the trip. I'd just say you wouldn't need to tip me. But I kind of like that. I think I might have to put that into my repertoire. I do tell people, when they don't close the door that, Uber gets mad when when passengers gets mad at me when passengers fall out. So could you pull your door again for me? And that seems to always go over well, instead of somebody just think I'm being snotty that they don't know how to close the door. But so red flags, and this really can go for passengers and drivers. And guys, start thinking about this. Throw some stuff in the chat, some of the red flags that you have, both for food delivery, because I know we got a fair number of food delivery people in here, and there's tons of red flags going into some of these sketchy places. Then we've got it for passengers and drivers, all the above. This could be an entire episode in itself, guys, and be great to have a conversation with a passenger, like passenger co-host, or even a whole forum of people, kind of like how Steve does some of his stuff and brings on multiple people. Might be an interesting discussion. But here's the bottom line on red flag. Well, we'll go to the bottom line at the end of this. One of the things sometimes, a lot of people, because I know that this area really well, people kind of, they'll look up and look a little weird, and they'll like glance over at me, is when I'm not taking the route. And I'm really bad, and I need to, for the comfort of my passengers, I need to, let them know that, okay, either I've just left this area and, I know the highway's backed up, so I'm going to take a different route. Or, what I will sometimes tell people is, look, Uber doesn't always give you the fastest route because they want to charge you more. So if they can make the route take longer, they're going to charge me. They're going to charge you more, and they don't care after I accept the ride if I take the slower route. And I do actually believe that, guys. But communicate with your passengers. And again, this is something I can improve on while we're being honest. That's one thing. So, Torp, I'm going to keep going on with this, but clarify that a little bit more. You said over-exaggerated instructions for food delivery would be a big red flag for you. Instructions on how to get there, or instructions like bring me 5 hot sauce, 4 mild, and 1 inferno. Clarify that a little bit, and we'll come back to you in just a second on that one, Torp. But love to hear some additional insight on that one. So that's one thing that does make a lot of passengers nervous. When they're used to taking the same route every single day, just have a conversation with them. It'll set them at ease, and create a better experience for them. And but one thing is, you got a driver that's driving erratic. You don't have to tolerate it. Now, I'm not saying that they're going with the flow of traffic and might be going 5 miles over a speed limit. I mean, a guy or girl that's acting like they might be on something, or they're just getting ready to road rage or something like that. Your safety is more important than getting to work on time, guys. Just ask them if they could please pull over for, to a safe area. Best thing you could do is tell them you don't feel well and you feel like you're going to throw up. I guarantee you get any damn driver to pull over for that one. You don't have to make it awkward or anything like that. Just ask them to pull over, and then get out, cancel the ride, and report it. But don't do it for a free ride. Don't do it because you're having a bad day. Make sure it's really, truly a safety issue, guys, that needs to be addressed. And they're out there. I've heard plenty of stories. I've seen people with Uber and Lyft stickers driving like freaking morons, along with all the other morons out here. And so don't be afraid to report a driver for a valid reason. And same thing for drivers. Don't worry about your stupid 1-star, 2-star, 5-star reviews. I am proudly not a 5-star Uber driver, guys, and that's because my safety and the vibe in my car take precedence over everything. I want it to be a happy, good experience. And if somebody's coming in there and look like they've been, and they're nodding out on freaking blues, I am not giving that freaking ride. And if they get in my car and they smell like they've been smoking fentanyl, get out of my car. I don't care. I'm not, I do carry Narcan with me, but I don't want to have to deploy Narcan on you and then you wake up fighting because, you're pissed off because I ruined your high. And some of those can be really, really hard because, they may have just smoked up before they went to get in your car. And so you might have a problem going on, but try and be aware of that, cognizant of it, obviously knowing the areas, but don't stereotype the areas. I've picked a lot of good people up in bad areas, even like, the homeless shelters and stuff like that. So anyway, so what Torp originally was saying about exaggerated instructions. So what he put down in the chat here is when they tell the driver to make sure they get the address and then give the statements, it's been delivered to the wrong house a lot. So, and Torp had two contract violations after those. Yeah, that's actually a great point. That's a red flag, Torp. Not necessarily from a safety standpoint, it could be. So that's why I was kind of missing it. But you're spot on, brother. Is that, yeah, they're looking to just kind of have it documented in the chat that they want to get a free meal. That's what they're trying to get away with. So good tip there, Torp. I appreciate you sharing that with everybody. No smoking fentanyl in Sean's car. Yes, I'm going to put a sign up. Steve, what do you think? No smoking fentanyl, and should I get a neon, or what do you think would look best with that? Blah Blah City Tours. Ahmed, what's up, brother? How you doing, my man? Yeah, there's a lot of red flags and rides up there in Denver. So even non-rideshare drivers should carry Narcan. You never know. Yeah, Steve, no kidding. I mean, I think we've all seen people nodded out whenever we're walking in delivery in some of those areas that you're like, what am I doing? Can you smoke crack, Sean? No, you can't. You could. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on the day that you catch me on. Yeah, we're gonna have to consider that one, Sue, and then we'll have to get back to you on it. I mean, my knee-jerk reaction is don't smoke crack in my car either, but maybe I'm just being a little too uptight. So no, that's a great question. Let's cover that one right now from a while we're on the red flags standpoint, Torp. So Torp asked question, says, as far as safety, have you ever been asked to go inside a home? And yes, I have. And that's another reason that I don't like doing grocery delivery, is exactly that. And, it's how to... Sorry, I'm reading this other chat and I'm trying to have a serious conversation here, guys. And we're talking about smoking crack in one another's cars. So anyway, yeah, I have been asked and I declined to do so. And, some people probably, it maybe, actually, there was one time I stepped in and I set it on a door because the person was in a wheelchair and I just went in, dropped the food bag on the table and walked back out really quickly. It was like, one thing I probably should have done was take my phone and put it on record at that point just to protect myself from, anything that might have happened. But that's really a great question, Torp. Has anybody else experienced that? I bet you all have, particularly people wanting to have their 12 cases of water brought in so they don't have to do it themselves. So, hang on one second here. Let me get this technical difficulty out of my way. Okay, so back to the crack conversation that wasn't on today's scheduled topics, but Steve says only smoke crack at home. Yes, that's exactly how I feel about the entire subject. Y'all can do whatever you want in the privacy of your own home. Just don't impact me or my family, and do whatever. I don't give a damn. So let's see here. So now we got some more comments rolling in. Bubba Sue says she's delivered groceries inside of an assisted living where customers are in wheelchairs. Okay, that's a little different, category. I didn't experience that because, again, that's why I'm just like, I signed up for Instacart just so I could kind of get that experience. I did that a couple months ago because when I decided I was going to start doing stuff like this, I wanted to be able to talk about a lot of different subjects, topics. I've done DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, and so on and so forth. And, so I tried to avoid, 50 cases of water orders and things like that, but I did do that. But that's a great point. And I would do that if I accepted that order, Bubba Sue. I'd deliver it in, because to me that's just kind of part of the deal. I mean, it's not like you're going to set it at the concierge desk and go, "Here you go, Grandma, come get your stuff." Even I wouldn't do that, and that's saying a lot. So. So Steve, Rideshare Rodeo says, Sean, remember when Uber was partnered up with Go-Go Grandparent? We had to go in homes to help elderly. They still occasionally order rides. But yes, the partnership thing and the expectations with that was just absurd. And that was actually one of the things where I just took a break from it at that point. It's like, I'm not taking those rides. I'm not qualified to, transport elderly people. And Steve, that's another, that's a great topic. I'll have to, add to it, is talking about, Medicaid rides and things of that nature. And, we just leave the whole politics, and maybe we get into that too, about how we get screwed while these third-party companies are making all this extra money off of it. But yeah, that was just a complete nightmare, Steve. And, we still have those experiences. And unfortunately, I'll tell you, the worst demographic I have to deal with are elderly people. And, a lot of them have memory care issues that, they should be in a different facility, or they should be in a facility, or ones that are in facilities and should be monitored or supervised, and then they just send them out on their little merry way to their doctor's appointment or whatever, and next thing you know, they're getting mad and slamming their walker into my car. It's happened multiple times. I guess that's one way they want to get my attention, and it does, but it's not a positive outcome for them. So Torp says, couldn't speak to the crack food delivery for the win. All right. Bubba Sue says, Instacart is hot garbage. Instacart is working and getting kicked in the nads here. All right, well, how do you really feel, Torp? Matthew Kennedy, welcome in. How we doing, Matt? Let's see here. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to take a quick pause. I'm supposed to, I guess I can only do it from I was going to make a couple more mods here. I was going to make Torp a mod, but anyway, I don't know how to do it from StreamYard, so we'll catch you on there later, Torp. I appreciate you coming in and supporting this little adventure that I got going on. Okay, so we're done talking about crack and the basics of some red flags, because I'm afraid to go any further down with red flags, because I think we're going to go down a rabbit hole again with it. Actually, I do want to talk about a couple other things with red flags, and it kind of segues to a video I did and something that was in the news. While we're talking about red flags, passengers, don't report your drivers for poking at their phone when they're doing Uber and Lyft, and they're in the middle of your ride and they get another ride offer, It's the way the system's designed, and they only give us a few seconds to be able to make a decision on it. You can shut that off, drivers, but most drivers don't, because, you know, we need to get those rides, and you can't do it from StreamYard. Okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know that, Torp. So, you know, this is one of those things, you know, balancing safety out with trying to run a business. I understand why Uber and Lyft do it, but a lot of it's that damn video game psychology. They're trying to get you into the hurry mode. They don't, you know, they don't want you to make an educated decision on whether you should take this ride or not. So, guys, what I tell you is, drivers, it's better to ignore a ride than, you know, destroy your car, or more importantly, maybe destroy somebody's life, you know, with an accident. So keep it, you know, keep the eyes on the road, keep the eyes off of the gamification, as Steve called it, because that's exactly what it is. You know, they treat us like video games. They want us to get those dopamine rushes and this and that. But meanwhile, they're sitting there saying they care about our safety, including this latest little thing that's come on, and it put me on a rant earlier this week. And some of you probably already saw the video, but where I was talking about where I got this notice that I might have been sharing my account. I wasn't sharing my account. A lot of people, it's not most people, like somebody on X was wanting to debate with me about, but some people are experiencing because they're not responding to the take a photo thing too quickly. And what's happening a lot of the times is that they excuse me, I lost my train of thought here. What happens a lot of times is they're done with like a Lyft ride, and then they go back on Uber. They'll click, you know, go, and then all of a sudden it says, and they're driving down the road, you know, just kind of carefully multitasking, and then all of a sudden they get this, oh, take a photo. Well, shit, I'm in the middle lane. I can't get off into the parking lot quick enough. So that is one of the legitimate reasons that is happening with this, is where drivers aren't responding to it quickly. And so the algorithm or the fraud detection, whatever you want to call it, think that they are, you know, doing some things you can do. There's a couple things you can do to evade the photo thing or to emulate the photo. And but meanwhile, it's causing all kinds of chaos in this world, and it's not making things any safer, and it's not deactivating people that are truly a problem, and sharing accounts or buying fraudulent accounts, as Steve has covered extensively about what's going on in that world with food delivery. It's going on everywhere. And meanwhile, you know, they're just like, oh, we care about your safety. No, bullshit. You care about profits. And if they cared about safety, they would not ever even give the drivers an option, let alone push them to leave their ride acceptance on while they're in another ride. If they cared about safety, they would tell passengers, we care about your safety and our driver's safety, so it may take you a little bit longer to get a ride because all of our drivers are in a ride right now. Do you think that'd be the end of the freaking world? No. It's about them turning and burning. We all like to get another butt in the seat as much as the next person, because that's the only way we can make any damn money, because they squeeze all of it out with all these other false, you know, we pay so much in insurance. We have to take 70% of this fare so we can put it into marketing. Thank you, drivers. You know, how come I can't write off their marketing on my freaking taxes? Is what I want to know. But anyway, get me on a soapbox here, getting off of the safety thing. Let's go back and see what's going on with the chat a little bit. We had a few things coming in since then. So again, we were at the gamification. Man, you get me on a soapbox with that one anytime we mention that, Steve. But great topic, and yes, it's absolutely 100% true. Torp, glad to have you in, brother. Thank you so much for the compliment. They care so much about safety that they allow accounts to be sold on live streams and TikToks. Yep, and you covered that, Steve, and I hope you keep covering and uncovering it, because that's a huge issue. I mean, again, if they cared about safety, they would shut that down. This is like, deactivating some guy because he didn't respond to a taking his photo quick enough. That's like somebody going and swatting somebody's house because they were smoking a joint in an area that it's not legal, instead of going after but yet they know who the drug cartel is, and they have access to the drug cartel and could shut them down. No, they're just going to go after the small users and this and that. No, cut them off at the head. If you really care about safety, Uber, Lyft, and all the other platforms, get serious about this and start going after the main perpetrators that are causing this. Quit putting Band-Aids on this crap and fix it. They care much about safety. They allow accounts to be sold in live streams. We just talked about that. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the compliment, brother. We're just kind of winging along here. We'll see what we get going. All right. What did I miss? Oh, we got to shut it down. Absolutely, Bubba Sue. And that's the only way to do it, is let's get out here and start talking about this stuff. And, I will, my main focus, obviously is about rideshare safety, but guys, they're tied together, and, we've all done if you've done rideshare, you've done food delivery. It's the only way to make any money doing all of them. But Torp was yelling in caps and apologized. Tell me what I can do to help. I don't know if I missed a comment or not, but anyway. All right. So there's plenty of stuff we can keep talking about in the red flag world, and that's going to be an ongoing kind of thing. But the next thing I wanted to get into, and this is actually our last segment, and you'd think with me having 20 minutes left that we're not going to have but about 5 minutes of conversation, but background checks. Just to need to capsule it all. That's all good, Torm. Let's talk about background checks, guys. So, as you've heard a lot of people talk about, is that checker is the most common name that you hear in background checks, and it's not all just checker, but there isn't a single system a single database, we'll call it, from the criminal standpoint that they're using. And hang on a second here, because it's really interesting how similar. So it's called a national criminal database is what they're all using. Now, the interesting piece of that is that there's another database that's used by the FBI and law enforcement called the National Crime Information Center, NCIC. So they give it a national crime database. They try and give it a fancy term so it sounds like it's some big deal. But the problem is it's littered with so many errors, and I'm going to go through a few of these things that I picked out by going through looking at what Uber and Checker and how they describe a lot of this stuff. It was well. Let's first talk about the criteria. All right. So the first thing is when you go to sign up with these, and I think everybody in the room knows this. So this is really kind of fill in the gaps where I'm missing it, guys. But the first thing you do is you get your MVR check. And so with that, and this is just kind of rough because different jurisdictions, there feels like there's inconsistency sometimes, because there is, because different jurisdictions have different standards. And, Uber and Lyft and all the others are going to go to the lowest standard that they can. It's like Steve says, I'm going to start a background check company that does it for $22.99, 1 cent cheaper than Checker, and you'll do nothing. Well, you got to pull the stuff from another database, and then so you got to develop an API. So you can get a programmer, develop an API, Steve. They'll pull from that database, and then they'll format it into a little report, and then they'll send it back to whoever and say, oh, they either passed or they failed. More than likely, they're just going to say, here's what we found, because that's what Checker does, says, here's what we found, and then y'all do what you want with it. And that's smart on Checker's part, because they're really deflecting any liability. They're not saying, you need to not make this higher or make this higher based on these conditions. They just say, here's what was found in the database. So they do have some FCRA, Fair Credit Reporting requirements, FCRA, but majority of it not. And no, they don't run credit checks. None of them do credit checks, but there are some similarities with some of that. Here we are we're back with Muga. I'm gonna make that hat. So next time you have me on, Steve, I'll have the hat ready. So I'll just decide based on their name. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. But so they do the NVR, and of course, major violations like DUIs, reckless driving, vehicular homicide, those are going to get you disqualified, guys. But other than that, they look at minor violations. Typically, they're looking around 3 minor violations, it's 3 minor violations in 3 years. That's pretty loose. And then driving experience. Here's the interesting one. Listen to how this is phrased, guys. I'm going to read it verbatim. It says you generally need at least 1 year licensed U.S. driving experience, or 3 years if you're under the age of 25. So there's a couple things that stick out. It says you generally need. So somewhere along the lines, there's room for exception. Not sure what that means. There wasn't anything I could find that clarified that. But then 1 year of licensed, and this says driving experience. I think there's no proof that you've been driving for a year. It's that you've been licensed for a year. So you could go in, get your driver's license, go from the Philippines, get your driver's license, and be a wayman. Never mind. Anyway, you could get your driver's license, never drive another mile, then all of a sudden, I'm gonna go drive people around. And even some of the requirements for food delivery, they have some of the same food requirements. So, and that becomes a liability issue for them as well. So, which is a reason that they kind of follow an industry standard. So, go along with that. So, if you pass all of that, you've been driving, you have a license in the U.S. And nowhere have I said you have to be a U.S. citizen. Nowhere do I have to say that your green card has, is valid or otherwise. Only that you have a driver's license for at least a year in the U.S. or 3 years if you're under 25. Okay? Criminal history checks. Now, this is one that just gets really, really, really ugly. Yeah, you missed the Waymo bashing, Steve. Sorry, you'll have to replay the beginning. And so, yeah, go download it on your favorite podcast platform, Steve, and listen to the whole episode. Give me some playtime. Anyway, so criminal background checks for things like, again, murder, robbery, terrorism, only if you're convicted, not accused. That those get you the no, you're not qualified, or I'm sorry, you know, threatening to terrorize somebody. I just realized I forgot a topic, guys. Holy crap, how did I miss that? But anyway, so obviously significant things, you're not going to be qualified. Supposedly conviction of a sex assault supposedly does not qualify, which probably majority of them probably don't slip through. But the whole background check thing gets weird, and we'll talk about that down at the bottom of how the check goes through. So, and then they have a 7-year rule on even robbery, that supposedly after 7 years you can robbery, fraud, and aggravated assault. After that, you're gonna pass off to the next level of, here's a consideration. One thing that this one gets really weird is pending cases. Sometimes they will get flagged. It depends on the jurisdiction. So if you were like in Denver, Arapahoe County, Colorado Springs, maybe, that like El Paso County, a lot of that stuff goes on, it's entered into the docket, so it shows as a pending case, and so it should show up on most systems. But again, this is where things get really, really kind of weird. And it's kind of ironic because we live in a country that says we're innocent until proven guilty, but yet, can't drive based on that. And we'll talk about, we're going to go ahead and squeeze in my I forgot to talk about it topic right now. And this was a really good one. I can't believe that I forgot about it, but pending charges. So you can't drive if you have pending charges. Okay. But can you ride if you have pending charges? What does everybody think about that? If you got arrested for assaulting an Uber driver, can you still ride? I'm going to wait for some answers on that one, and I'm going to read some comments here. So let's see. Do you try and pull up passenger pickup? Suggest a passenger not to sit behind you, but instead sit in the back seat passenger side. Absolutely. I will not, if they are solo, I will not let somebody sit behind me, Steve. One is stupid because I'm 6 foot tall, so there's not nearly as much room. And that's the way I simply diffuse it. I just roll down the window and say, hey, other side, not much room over here. And then, I've never had but one person, not immediately comply without any kind of agitation or anything like that. He didn't get a ride because he was just a jerk. So we'll exclude him from the conversation. But yeah, Steve, jumping over to your question really quick, while we're waiting for some comments to come in from the chat about my question that I posed. Never let somebody sit behind you. It's a safety issue for them too. I mean, I could confine somebody because I have a Hyundai Kona. It doesn't have electric seats. So I'm sure we've all seen that video, where they like they put the thing over the guy's throat and, and then how you escape it because you put your seat back real quick and, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, and then they have the other side of it where the guy's in electric seats and he's like slowly going back. Well, I have a Kona. It doesn't have electric seats, so all I have to do is pop it and I can lean back and I could restrain that person behind me. So passengers, and I know there's this guy that was part of the presidential detail, and he says, women should always sit behind the driver. It's the safest location. No, bullshit. They're not your protectee. If they were your protectee, I can make a lot of arguments why, yes, you want them sitting right behind you, but you potentially have a combatant behind you. You want them further away from you. And then passengers, you want the best escape route that you have possible. And that means being the furthest away from that driver as possible. So no, don't listen to anything other than common sense. Common sense says, I can't confine you like this if you're not right behind me. I have a harder time reaching over to get to you. That way, you have a quicker and better escape route away from me. The most a driver could get to is pretty much a leg before you have an opportunity to respond and do something. Okay, and I didn't say react, respond, because you need to think these things through, and how are you going to deal with the situation. That's how you survive stuff like this, people, is you think them through. You don't just sit there and go, well, I don't think it's ever going to happen to me. Well, it might. And the more you do this, the more chances, the higher the chances are something, awful could happen. So guys, think about it. So Steve, that again, man, love these off-topic questions. Because they really add to the value of this, and and I really want to keep the conversation going in there with everybody in the chat regularly on this show. So please contribute. So, all right. So I asked a question about. Hold on. Now, man, how slow was this chat delayed? Because we're obviously. I know you had that problem on StreamYard the other night too, Steve, where the chat comments were way behind, and I think that's what's going on here with me. So we're gonna jump back a little bit, and so can Rideshare get deactivated for traffic tickets? Yes, absolutely. And again, that was torpor. I was going into 3 minor violations in 3 years. Even will do it, but even. 1 major violation, and they do check, they do recheck annually, supposedly. But I also think under the Fair Credit Act that you have to be notified anytime. So, and I know sometimes with Uber and Lyft, you will get those notifications, but I don't know what their consistency is on that. And that could, some jurisdictions are going to, require certain things. And including fingerprints, which I didn't touch on. But to me, that should be a requirement. And we'll keep diving into that. But let's see if where we're at with comments, to see if any of this is starting to catch up. Talk about frustrating. Oh my gosh, I am going to go dig in and learn OBS much better. I got so many Olympic athlete stories, Steve. But yes, I know which one you're talking about, and so DUI. Let's see. I'm not sure what that comment was. I'm lost on that one, so I'll let the chat clear that one up. Even then, you might pass the checker background check. No, it's true, Steve. And the funny thing is that so I know someone that had a DUI. Uber said no. Uber Eats. All right, are we back? I just froze on my end for a minute. I don't know what's going on, guys, but I think I was just getting ready to. I just read Steve's comments. StreamYard sucks, and I think that they're creating an uprising against us, Steve. And now they just went and put me in the freeze mode. I thought we were past the days of buffering. I don't even live out in the country anymore. What the hell? So bear with the technical difficulties. Maybe for the podcast people, we'll clean up some of the audio. I don't know. Maybe you'll listen to all the stumbling around too, and how much we're loving StreamYard right now. I think maybe we'll just leave it in there. But let's see, rideshare kind of makes, I guess, because in some states like New Jersey, it's a traffic violation. Yeah. So again, it's jurisdiction based, and again, what I started to say about fingerprints, I think every state should require fingerprints and a fingerprint background check, which means that goes through NCIC Information Center, which is housed by the FBI, and that's where everything goes into that. It doesn't mean that. Oh my gosh, it still keeps freezing. It doesn't mean that No, I'm glitching because the damn screen's glitching. It doesn't mean that, everybody has some common sense stuff put into place. And, this is the way we're doing it right now with these background checks that are, this hodgepodge database. But as I started to say before we had technical difficulties, I know somebody who got a DUI, tried to apply for Uber Eats, got declined, tried to apply for DoorDash, got declined, got approved with Grubhub and Instacart. Yeah, Instacart, I think it was. But they're all using the same database. So what gives there? They had a valid driver's license. They just got a DUI several years ago and have been on the straight and narrow since then. No other violations. And so there's not a lot of consistency, though. That if that happens in that arena, where else are they missing? That's what really concerns me. But back to your comments, Steve. About don't give Olympic athletes rides. We had a situation a couple months ago down in Colorado Springs where a Uber driver was killed by an Olympic hopeful. She was shot put, if I remember correctly. I'm going to actually get the records pulled on that, all the court records that I can, and see if I can talk with one of the arresting detectives or something, and see what really is going on with that case. Somebody needs to follow that because it's not being followed, and this is really points out about legislation, and it can happen anywhere. The guy that it happened to, he lived somewhere apparently around where I did. And this gal was an Olympic hopeful, and she, murdered him. My guess is she probably had some mental health issues that she was combating. And that's a whole nother challenge for us as drivers, putting people into the yard, or into the yard. I was reading Steve's comment about StreamYard, into the back seat and getting confined with this. Same thing for passengers. You get some drivers that are just, not there as well. So we just got to keep working together as a community, having these conversations and figuring all this stuff out. But, so let's see here. Steve says, don't worry about StreamYard. Just keep going. Thank you much, brother. I appreciate the support. And just ignore it. Torp says, ignore it also. All right, brother. I appreciate you guys. And should make a fake breath starter for Carter people with DUIs and just find out it's a hazard. Oh my gosh, that could make for some great video. Wonder how long it would take before one of us got deactivated if we did that. I so badly want to try it though, man. That makes some great viral videos. So, here we are. All right. So anyway, I had asked originally before we got derailed, can you get arrested and still get arrested more specifically for assaulting an Uber driver and still take Uber? Well, the answer is, if you're Kiefer Sutherland, then yes. So the good old stalkers at TMZ were at LAX, and one of the paparazzi, Steve knows the answer, one of the paparazzi got a photo of him in the airport, very clear photo that it is Kiefer Sutherland. And then later, the same individual that, if you didn't see the earlier photo, wouldn't know that it was him, was getting picked up in the Uber rideshare area. And I don't know if we have any LA drivers in here that can confirm, but every other place, you know, it's like Denver, they have their Lyft area, they have their Uber area, they have their driver co-op area, and that's, you know, where everybody goes. In the Uber area, Kiefer Sutherland was going and getting into an Uber black car, getting all this stuff loaded up. So, Steve, I got to agree with that comment. Uber does not deactivate passengers for assaulting drivers. They do not care. That's proof is in the pudding right there. I mean, and, you know, TMZ, take them for what they are. You know, but they reached out to Uber even and asked for a comment, and Uber's just been silent on it. So apparently, if your last name's Sutherland, go threaten to kill a Uber driver, and, you know, and apparently he physically assaulted him too. And you can just keep riding with us, because we want your money. We don't care about the drivers. So, okay, obviously I'm being a little sarcastic here. This is a really serious subject. And again, goes back to illustrate the point and the problems with, you know, the rideshare industry, the lack of consistency. You know, drivers are treated one way, passengers are treated another way. And then you have serious critical incidents that are documented, and passengers aren't being suspended. At least put them under suspension pending the outcome of the investigation. Now, speaking of pending the outcome of the investigation, for the record, Kiefer Sutherland's case, even though he was arrested, he is still pending prosecution, because the prosecution's office sent the case back to the to LAPD. I think it was LAPD instead of LA County Sheriff's Office, LAPD, to for further investigation. Now, that means they're either trying to apply other charges, or they may have a hard time for a conviction. But he was originally only had one charge against him, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was an assault charge. So, guys, we've got to start having conversations with these legislators, and we got to start fixing things, because they're going to make stupid decisions. Oh my God. They're going to make stupid decisions if we don't get involved and start communicating to what is going to make sense. We had this happen in Colorado. It's going to happen again. We got to get with these legislators and start standing united. Meanwhile, Kiefer Sutherland has 24 hours to fix it. And I'm going to tell you, Steve, I so badly wish I knew StreamYard better, because I even downloaded the little 24 intro music, you know, that says, this on blah, 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 on the evening of the presidential California primary election. And yeah, I had it all planned out in my head, but I'm not good enough with StreamYard, and I'm giving up on StreamYard anyway. So enough of them. And that pretty much, I think, gives us a good opportunity to call it a night. And guys, I really, really, really appreciate y'all coming in and supporting me, getting this thing going, and contributing to the conversations and making this your show as well. That's the way we're going to get this done. This is exactly the vision I have in my head. And thank you guys so much for contributing and bringing it to fruition. I really think it is going to be able to help us make a difference in it. I look forward to any of you guys' feedback that you have. Most of you know how to get a hold of me, either through Steve or otherwise. And over Sartec. What's up, Colin? I just see you coming in. And guys, let's do this for another week. What do you think? So until then, I appreciate y'all, and you guys be safe out there. Have a great night.